Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and today's episode... Wait, I totally messed that up. I ask you how you're doing, and then I introduce the person. Lance!
Yes?
I totally care about you. Lance LaDuke, how are
Yes?
you?
Who is this?
My name is Andrew Hitz.
Hey!
I'm a professional tuba player, which is actually a thing.
Hi.
Who are you?
Gurn Blanston. A great pleasure.
Gurn?
Gurn. I stole that from a Steve Martin thing.
That's
Gurn.
a good person to steal from. So,
yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
So, Lance, how are you today?
I just laughed really hard. We just finished the bonus episode with our dear guest, Matthew Murchison. And
my brain is
tummy
scrambled.
hurts.
That's why I'm all jumbled. So, yeah, that was something.
Whew.
That was an epic bonus episode. There were like 5 stories that all could stand alone as the bonus episode, and people would be like, I'm glad I listened to that. So, my goodness. So, anyway, today's episode features Dr. Matthew Murchison, who is a euphonium player extraordinaire and is a composer and an arranger and a knucklehead. And, he's got a lot going on.
Amen to that. Yeah, it's weird having somebody on that I've known since they were 15.
Right? Yeah, and it's I have not known him as long as you have, but I've known him for a long time. It's he's a really good friend of both of ours, and it's cool seeing how incredibly creative he is within our industry, which our corner of the industry, low brass, cannot be the most creative corner of the music business. So
well, that's true.
And he's just a shining example of what is possible. So
Yeah.
We were having so much fun with the good doctor that we forgot to ask him the standard, like, where can people find you? So murchmusic.net, MURCH music.net is where you can find him online, and we'll link to that in the show notes, as we always do. We always throw any link that we have into the show notes. And and I think, speaking of the bonus episode, thank you so much to all of the Patreon patrons, from each of you who have gone to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. And for every donation level, even just $1 per episode, you get a bonus episode with every single person. The interviews, which are free and will always be free, are every other week. And then in the intervening weeks, we always have an extra little bit with each person. And they're always fun. And so there's also, for anybody that's at the $3 or higher level, there is a little bit of bonus content in the past, and there's a whole bunch coming forward, which we've already got in the pipeline. So check out Patreon. And we also want to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Thank you, Mary Pappert School of Music Brass Area. You are a great sponsor, and thank you very much for that. If you want to find out more about the goings-on going on in the brass area at Duquesne University in the Mary Pappert School of Music, you can click on the link in the show notes. And very special thanks to Jim Bubble Butt Nova. Dear, I need a nap.
Wow.
We've gone from Twinkle Toes to Bubble Butt just in the span of one episode. So
yeah, see, this is how either of our brains work, which is that Lance threw a random semi-disturbing middle name in on the last intro, and now that's going to be the case if we do 400 episodes. There will be another 300 and something middle names for Jim Nova. So there you go, Jim Bubble Butt Nova. So generally only fellow members of the Pittsburgh Symphony call him by that name.
That's
but
true.
But yeah,
good point.
We're taking some liberties. So
all right, fine. Sorry.
There,
BB.
Yeah. Oh man. And as always, thank you to everybody that's gone to iTunes, left a rating and a review, or have told a friend about about this incredibly important and influential podcast that we're doing. It's really it's just vital work that we are putting out into the world and
changing lives.
Yes. we are changing lives. So, yes, every time we have a full morning of recording, I'm changing my wife's life when I tell her that on her precious weekends she's got solo mom duty for like 4 straight hours. So, that is a life we are changing. So, yep, there you go. So, all right. Well, without further ado, let us get to the conversation with Dr. Matthew Murchison, euphonium player extraordinaire. And today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by Lance. How do you describe this gentleman? It's kind of a
gentleman's not a good start.
Yeah, well,
one of the sexiest purveyors of euphonium mystic artistry the world has ever known.
He is easily the sexiest euphonium player in the state of West Virginia, and his name is.
I feel. You know what? Yeah. You gotta move to the right market. You know what I mean?
His name is Matthew Murchison. Matty M, as I like to call him. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Talking to another euphonium player. I mean, I'm living the dream. Really am.
I know. Wow. So many
weird
good
how
life
they're always
choices.
so free. I don't know why.
I know. That's right. It's like, hey, can you do this at 12:30? Sure. Oh, I meant 10:45. Yeah. What else am I doing?
About 2. Yeah, that'll work too.
Yeah. Is it a day of the week?
I'm good.
Yeah,
all
I can
day.
do that.
Oh, Lance, my favorite part of the interactions with Matthew. Wait, are you a doctor?
Oh yeah,
I am. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
It is.
So yeah. So the funniest parts of the interactions with Dr. Murchison about setting this interview up, other than completely giving him the wrong time and then texting him and saying like, "Dude, where are you? We're waiting for you," was the fact that he texted me last night and he said, "So how does this work? Do I just call you?" And I then texted back and said, "No, you have to go to Lance's house."
Well, and it was.
And normally,
and I stared at the text for a while, and I was like, wait a second, because the thing that was perfect about that is I live just close enough where I thought,
yes, exactly.
Well,
that's why I did it. That's why I did it. Yeah, if it said you have to fly from San Francisco, that's obviously like, ha. But I was like,
right.
I bet I can at least get a 1 Mississippi count out of him
Oh,
where
yeah.
he's very confused.
No, I was sitting in the office practicing, and I saw the text come in, and I was just like, I stared at my phone for a good 20. And I did a thing where I picked it up and almost responded immediately, but then I just put it back down and looked at it again.
And I was going to say, oh, just busting balls, like et cetera. And then I was like, no, I'm going to let this sit.
No, exactly.
No
Just let it
context.
sit there.
Yeah. There you go.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's one for the hippie. There we go. All right, good. So what were you practicing? Let's start there.
What was I practicing? Oh, I think I was
Tolerance?
Yeah. Always. I was there was a pretty good C tuba at school. I teach at Marshall University now, and so nobody was using it, and I brought it home to start working on doing some C tuba a little bit, because it's not something I'd really worked on before. So
it's not that hard. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've played E flat tuba for a long time now, and yeah, kind of the cool thing, like whenever I went from euphonium to E flat tuba, it made the euphonium feel easier, and then even just so far, like doing some C tuba stuff makes the E flat tuba feel easier. So yeah, just working on stuff.
That's all I've got, Lance. Is there anything else you want to hear from
Let me
the
finish
doctor?
writing this for the show notes.
That was good.
Working. Right.
Working on
That's
stuff.
That's N with an apostrophe at the end of working.
Okay, and stuff with a PH or with two Fs?
Yeah, it's there's a silent P at the beginning.
Okay, stuff. All right.
I think my favorite part of the good doctor is that he still has a Hotmail account.
Yep.
He doesn't. Well, no, wait. Let's be clear. I still have a Hotmail account. I haven't logged in like 9 years, but he still uses a Hotmail account.
I do still use it. Yeah. No, I've tried a couple times to switch to Gmail, but I can't get anything that resembles my name. Surprisingly enough, and so yeah, I don't know. I just stick with it. I keep getting emails, so.
I still have mine feeds into the Gmail because we should just talk about email.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
I think it's gonna catch on one of these days.
And
I like how when he didn't. Well, he also you. So it is ironic, Dr. Matthew, that that you said that you still get emails, and yet you didn't get the email that was auto generated from Cast that I sent to the Hotmail account. So there you go.
Well,
so maybe you don't. Actually, that's a feature though, not a bug. Is if you don't actually get all of the email. Because what was it, Tim Ferriss, who called the email as like a collection of people who want you to do stuff for them. It's like,
yeah, right.
Which is true. Yeah, it's like I like to ignore email whenever I can get away with it. So
yeah, I mean, I may have blocked like Pedal Note Media a long time ago. So
fair enough. Yeah, we are. Whenever we're trying to raise funds, we always hit the Euphonium players first, especially the doctors of Euphonium, because you guys just have so much venture capital just burning a hole in your cases that you're our first stop. So
is venture capital code for loose change?
Yeah. When you're talking about a brass podcast, it is. Yes. So, Lance, ask, what is the nerdiest Euphonium question that you can think of to ask a doctor of Euphonium? He has 3 times the number of degrees you have.
That's true.
I know it is.
What kind of springs do you use? Have you how often do you change your springs out?
I use
if they get noisy, what do you do?
Yeah, sulfur springs are the kind of springs that I use. Hot springs.
Arkansas.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I think I have had to change my springs once before. This was a few horns ago. Nerdiest response I broke a spring once.
Oh no!
How did you
break
playing
a spring?
pantomime?
Pantomime, right?
I don't know. I was I think I'm just over time, I'm not known for taking great care of my instruments. Don't tell Jupiter. But I don't know. I was, practicing something technical, slamming the valves down really hard, and one did break at one point. But
what kind of sound does that make? Oh, that's a nice sound.
Something like that, I guess. That was a long time ago.
Actually,
I hope people find this as entertaining as I do.
Yeah, they might not, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
So please tell me that you did your doctorate on the maintenance of euphonium springs in a public school setting.
That sounds like it would have been more useful than my doctorate. That could have done some public good.
What did you do your doctorate in?
I have a doctorate in low brass performance.
Okay, and what did you do a dissertation? Like, how did it work?
I did. Research project. There was an option of, you could do a lot more recitals and do a shorter research project, or you could do one recital and do a big long research project. And so I did as many recitals as I could do.
Of course.
For the shortest. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I was tired. Oh no.
What happened? Did you break a spring? We lost.
What happened?
Man down.
I'm back.
Man down.
I'm back. Oh my goodness.
I think that we could hear you the whole time. So all of a sudden there's just this,
good.
oh no! And then
every time he starts talking about the research project, he blacks out. Oh no!
So what did you do? What did you do your research project on?
Yeah, it was basically a method book teaching euphonium players how to double on tuba. was what I ended up with. So there was a interview.
That's actually
component.
useful.
Yeah, it's all right. I should do something with it. It's registered with wherever all the doctoral projects get registered. So it's there, but yeah, I know, right? I don't know what it is. It was a long time ago at this point. Feels like forever ago. So I did some interviews, and with any sort of doctoral project, you want to be very, very specific with who you're going to interview, so the committee doesn't have a chance to say, well, why didn't you interview these 45 other people?
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up interviewing Pat Sheridan.
Who?
Dave. Yeah. Dave Zirkle.
Who?
And Fritz Kanzig.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, there were some other people that were on the interview list, but they were somebody was on sabbatical, and so that didn't work out. And
That's why I didn't do it. I was on sabbatical.
Yes, yeah. No, it was very specific things. It was like teachers who had taught euphonium players how to double, of which those euphonium players then found some sort of gainful employment on those instruments. And so, yeah, the interview part and then a method book part that I mostly just came up with myself based on some of the things I did based on some interview responses, but others were just things that I had been doing myself. And
that's actually really interesting. That's frustrating. I like to make fun of doctoral projects.
Yeah,
and dissertations because
sure.
it's low hanging fruit generally. But that's
the
like
lowest.
That's interesting. But
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that. And the surprise in your voice makes me happy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
if you can't already tell, the three of us knuckleheads know each other quite well. So yeah.
I've only known Matthew since he was 15.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
Might have been 14.
Was it that first year at Falcone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it probably 15.
Yeah,
maybe?
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
How did the not yet doctor Matthew do?
It was kind of fascinating. It was most of my experiences with Matthew where I would say things to him and he would look at me and nod, and I could see that he was trying to be respectful, but was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But thank you. It's nice of you. But no, I'm good.
That's not my recollection. That's not my recollection.
What was
All
your
right.
recollection? I don't remember.
This is getting real. I like this.
I remember
No,
it
I
was
don't know.
outdoors. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember meeting your mom for the first time.
Yeah.
Well,
She's
Easy there,
Heyo.
fella. What's
Heyo.
just let's okay.
no, she's very dedicated to her fine boy, and is a very nice person, and is a huge Matthew fan.
That's true.
As
Fair.
are we all.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, aren't we all?
Yeah.
Well, I just remember basically at 15, you knew all the fingerings to all the notes. You could kind of do everything you needed to do already. It's, Joe Broom is at University of Michigan right now, and he's another guy, like, you're one of I hate to say nice things about you, especially to your, well, I guess I'm not looking at you, but.
Yeah, you don't have to look at me.
I tried to get it face to face, but he wouldn't go for it.
It's like every once in a while, somebody comes along who at a very young age can kind of do all the stuff that you need to do, and Matthew was that guy. And so then it's just a matter of, well, what do you feel like playing? Because you can play any of the repertoire that you want at 16 or 17. Well, then what do you get to go do? And that's when, in my opinion, that's when it gets really interesting, because a lot of students strive to play all the toughest or most advanced repertoire. Mm-hmm. But when you've got a head start on the technique that's required, well, then you kind of blow through that stuff pretty quickly, and then you're faced with this huge opportunity. And, not to make this serious, but I'm kind of interested to talk more about how you took up the charge to do that and where you kind of went with all that. Because we usually just sort of max out with these like Tutica tunes and faster, higher, louder, and
yeah, exactly.
Tunes.
Yeah.
Tutica tunes.
Yeah, Tutica.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess by the time I sort of got done with undergrad, I felt like I had, kind of played all the stuff you were supposed to play.
And you did that. You started at Duquesne, and then you went to North Texas. Basically, you just sort of followed Brian, right?
Right. Yeah. There was. I was at Duquesne for 2 years, and then transferred to North Texas. The second year, Bowman left after my freshman year, but we didn't find out until later, and from a variety of circumstances, I'm like, well, I'm going to stay at Duquesne another year, and then studied with.
And then you found out I was coming, and you're like,
no, studied with the Brass Junkies' very own Lance LaDuke the second semester.
Dr. LaDuke.
I gotta get the hell out of here.
Wasn't it? I studied with you the second semester, though, right? Not
that
the
sounds
first
right.
semester.
Yeah, I got hired partway through the year.
Yeah. So I studied with, on the advice of some other students at the time, I studied with someone else.
Oh yeah.
The first semester.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we shouldn't speak ill of the dead.
Right. And so
I'm just gonna leave that right there.
Arnold Jacobs?
Yeah, well, for sure.
Well, oh man, so many things could say. Yeah, so I studied with someone else that first semester, and I before Lance even started, I had my transfer documentation in.
Mm-hmm.
So I transferred to North Texas, and yeah, and by the time I got through undergrad, like
awkward explanation ever. This is fantastic.
Well, I just you know.
No,
like you said,
I do know. Yeah.
I don't want to. No need
well,
to
let's
say
see.
anything.
Here, I'll insert enough commentary that we don't get in trouble, but that it's helpful. There was somebody who taught there who had a very distinctive personality and a very specific method of teaching, and
Jeff Connor.
Sort of a prickly personality, we'll say, and I think that's enough. You get kind of
I would just say, and I think this is like the basic truth of it is that it was a person that was very much like do it this way and don't ask why,
right,
and do it only this way, and that just wasn't for me.
Sure.
So anyway, so after, you know, I finished undergrad, I felt like I'd played all the stuff that you're supposed to play, and didn't really feel a desire to play it again. And so I got interested in arranging stuff that I did want to do. Pretty soon after undergrad, I got into Celtic music and started a little group where we started out playing mostly Celtic stuff, but expanded to some other world musics, and I got a lot of experience arranging for an unusual ensemble.
And that was Mainspring?
Yeah, that was Mainspring. So it was flute, euphonium, and rhythm section. And did some concerts with that. So little, small little tours that I set up or whatever. But yeah, I just didn't really want to go back to playing euphonium and piano stuff anymore. It just wasn't. I didn't find it that interesting. And I had started composing first when I was in high school. I'd written a couple pieces that were, I think, pretty bad. I think I still have the manuscript around here somewhere of the first one. But
can you sing one of them for us?
Oh no, I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I don't know. Yeah.
Low brass jokes, yay!
Yay! The insidest of inside baseball.
Yeah.
So I didn't really write for a while, but I felt like arranging was really good experience for when I went back to writing. I forget, what was the point of this question? Where am I going with this?
I asked what kind of salad you had for lunch.
Yeah, where?
Oh yeah, Greek.
You can go as deep on any of this as you want. We're trying to come up with an hour's worth of stuff to ask you about, and we're kind of struggling. So feel free to.
How did people respond to the? I already know the answer to this. How did people respond to Mainspring and to these forays? Hey, there's a big word right there. Forays into non-traditional euphonium repertoire.
Yeah. Well, I was definitely nervous before we started doing it to go out and play for real people, not the normal audience of euphonium and tuba players, that sort of thing.
You mean like a room full of puppets?
Like, yeah. Wait, we can talk about that.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll get there.
We'll get there. Wait for it.
We'll get there.
All right.
But yeah, it was great because, you'd go to a gig in like a little hall or in a bar or whatever and set up, and I was afraid it was going to be like a Blues Brothers scene where people throw stuff at me, but nobody cared that I played euphonium, and kind of the I mean, that's just a general statement, but the good thing about it, I think one of the actually benefits, people complain that nobody knows what a euphonium is or does, and sure, you can choose to look at that as a negative, and it may have some drawbacks, but I think a good thing about it is that nobody has, like, again, the general public has no preconceived notions about what you should do.
Bingo.
And so as long as what you're doing is done well, they're super happy about it. It's like, hey, cool.
That's interesting.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Cool. So that's what I found, and that was a really cool experience, just to be able to present music that I was interested in, and have people enjoy it, and not worry that I wasn't playing pantomime or whatever the case may be.
And so now this is, what, 10 years ago or more, right?
Yeah, I guess at this point probably like 10 to 12 years ago.
And so how did your peers take to it?
Well, I mean, I would say mostly very supportive. There was a couple of unfortunate experiences where I'd go play somewhere and maybe get heckled a little bit for not playing euphonium related music, and so
If they're not dead, you can name names because it's cool to. Right?
I remember the quote. I know the quote inside and out. I've said it many times.
Wait, what's the quote? Don't say who it was, but what's the quote?
The quote was, okay, so I did, we were doing a Mainspring concert, and an intermission, I don't know, I walked back out on stage to like change some setup thing or whatever, and somebody from the back of the hall yelled, "Play the Ponky Alley." So there was that.
Wait, did you know who this person was?
To be honest, to this day, I'm not exactly sure who yelled it.
That's funny.
It's so funny.
I'm not exactly sure.
It reminds me of that story from when we were in Germany and we were in that music store, and there was just like this whole row of local pros. I used the term pros guardedly, and they just sat there with their arms crossed the whole time we played. And
we in
Jupiter
Munich.
had just come out. That's right. Jupiter had just come out with these exo horns, and these guys came to pick a fight. And it was just like they through the translator, they wanted us to take horns off the wall and play repertoire that they decided that they wanted us to play, like on the spot, and to show that these horns weren't. And it was just like this whole thing.
It was. Yeah, they were trying to prove that the horn. I think that basically, without being complimentary, they were like, the point they were making was, well, you guys are so good that you could sound good on anything, so it has nothing to do with those horns, which are garbage. Mm-hmm. And to prove it, and they're literally pointed like, tuba, you grab that one, and horn, you grab that one, and yeah, that was something, man. Yeah, and that was like, I mean, the room was weird. Packed, but it was like there were like 60 people there, 50 people. It was like a music store.
Yeah.
And and it was kind of like, well, one, F you, two, two, it's like we have this whole show memorized, and I think I actually said this. I was like, all these pieces are memorized with like muscle memory. I can't. There are plenty of people, like if you get Rich Kelly in here, you could hand him an instrument and a key he never knew there was an instrument in, and could play it immediately correctly the first time from memory. But I can't play a tune I have memorized on a C tuba, on a B flat tuba from memory without even looking at the music once. Like,
yeah, right.
That's above my pay grade, and there are people who can do it. But also 3 FU.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
see above.
Yep, it was. I wish that one of them in German had say "Play the Punkielli." That would have been.
That would have been great.
That would have
Sounded
been
very angry in German.
Yeah, I don't understand what gets into someone's brain. They're like, you know what? I got to go to this event and show them how wrong they are.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
What are you doing
don't get
today?
it.
I'm righting the wrongs of the music
That's
industry.
right.
You know, I
Yeah.
like the way that Adam Carolla, who Lance and I were talking about before, because Lance just picked up a podcasting course of his, because we're going to figure out how to do this one of these days. But but anyway, Adam Carolla's thing is what he talks about the pie contest,
Right?
And he talks about how that if that there are a lot of people in the world that show up at a pie contest, and you enter a pie, and they go to the pie contest, and then they try your pie, and then they say your pie sucks, and then you say okay, cool. Like, I mean, I don't agree. I like my pie. That's why I brought it to the contest. But fair enough. Like, let me try your pie, and then they say, No, I don't have a pie. I just need you to know that I think that your pie sucks. And then he
Right.
says, well, okay, that's fine. But basically the long and short of it is that, like, if you don't have your own pie, then shut the hell up about my pie.
Right.
It's like, and
Yeah.
so those are the people that don't ever make their own pie. Because what's the only way to guarantee that no one ever either says to you or says to someone else or thinks to themselves that your pie sucks is to never make a pie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
easy to. I can't criticize your podcast if you don't have one, So it's like a form of hiding. And so if you just go and make fun of everybody else, and rather than doing your own thing, then So there you go. Yep.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
make your own damn pie. So
Yeah. So is now a good time to take a break for me to go get some pie?
Yeah, for sure.
I am kind of hungry.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you do with that, Matthew? Like in the moment, and now, like in retrospect, how does that experience impact you moving forward?
Well, I think it. I don't know. It certainly made me want to, as much as possible, again, just sort of play for the general public. But that thing did happen. But I do want to stress that overwhelmingly, even people, especially as time has gone on in the euphonium and tuba world, are supportive and interested in the things that are happening, because I think that nobody wants to hear the same stuff over and over again.
Sure.
Not many people do, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't anyway.
Yeah, none of the three of us do.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously you're not going to be everybody's favorite thing, but all I can do, in a sense, there's like this thing where I feel like in a way everybody's kind of programming for an audience of one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is, what they want to hear. I hope that, and I think I do that as well, but hopefully the variety of stuff that like I do now and put on a show, I want there to be some stuff for different listeners, and I won't say everybody, because I don't think you're ever going to get everybody, but for different listeners. But it's also okay with me if I do a recital or a concert and there's a couple things on there where some people are like, I really didn't like that at all. I'm okay with that. It's fine.
Sure.
I'd rather do what the collection of things that I feel like I need to do, and get as many people along for the ride as possible.
Well, there
Amen.
used to be two kinds of pie. Like there was the Brian Bowman kind of pie, and then there was the Rich Madison kind of pie, and that was it.
Yeah.
And if we want to grow the audience for the instrument, which is what a lot of people profess to want to do, we need to make a whole variety of pies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so now I've got like I started in the past couple of years writing some stuff with electronics, and a lot of the things I started writing the past couple of years has sort of been out of either, some friends will ask me to write something for them. That's how I have a euphonium and cello piece. Chewy and his wife Yulia needed a piece and asked me to write something.
So Chewy is Koichiro Suzuki, who's another.
Yeah.
He played in River City for a long time and actually got his master's at Duquesne. And one time, so he came in and he said, "My name is Chewy," and I said, "Why do they call you Chewy?" And he said, "Because of Chewbacca." And I said, "Why?" I said, "Why do they call you Chewbacca?" And he said, "I cannot tell you that." It's like the first time I met him. Like, okay, all right, so it's going to be like that.
Yeah. Start of a good relationship there.
Mm-hmm.
Some mystery in it.
I really love the balance that you are striking with your career of being true to yourself, but also not just doing that in a vacuum, and like, so considering the audience, but also, guess what? If you had no interest in either listening to or performing or composing music with electronics, then starting to do that is not a good idea, right? I mean, it's like,
sure,
yeah, you're just, but you have an interest in it, and again, it's like, it blows my mind that, well, a couple of things. One is that people actually get verbally upset. Occasionally, people get verbally upset if you're a euphonium player and you try and make a kind of pie that's not the two that Lance discussed, which is just strange.
Right.
We only make apple and blueberry cobbler here. That's it. Like, okay, like, cool, man. I mean, it's a pumpkin pie. I didn't exactly put rocks in it. I mean, it's just kind of like, But then the other thing is that you can't go so far. Well, I'm all on board with art for the sake of art and just to do nothing other than just to create something. But you can't have you can't do art for the sake of art with no thought about the end user, about the audience whatsoever, and then be baffled as to why it's not in any way commercially viable. And whether whether commercially viable means, I mean, when you're making a euphonium or a tuba record, you're not selling any records at all. But even like getting booked at a university, as a guest artist or something, it's there's just kind of certain things you have to keep in mind in order to have that be a success. So, but you seem to be balancing you seem to be doing a really good job of balancing like being your own thing, but also, keeping the end user in mind, which is admirable.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that's the perception, at least from you guys. So that's good. I mean, because whenever I'm working on something, a project, whether it's writing a piece or putting together a program or whatever it is, while I'm doing it, I feel like I know what I'm doing and I sort of know how to go about it. I mean, I'm always learning stuff when I'm writing or starting to get into electronics. Big learning curve there, of course, but I'm glad that's the perception, because when I'm not actively doing the stuff, most of the time I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Right,
like that's just the sort of general feeling. So that's good.
There's I guess it's a different way of saying the same thing, but if you're playing only the traditional repertoire, then you don't have as clear of a sense who the artist is as you do. Like if I go see you play, and I've known you decades now, I have a sense that this is you. I'm seeing you as an artist do this thing. I'm not seeing you execute these roles and this particular role on this piece of repertoire and this piece of repertoire. And you kind of guess at people's personality. It's my philosophy, which is that I want to be as close to who I am on stage and off. Like that there shouldn't be a difference there. It's just maybe a heightened version if I'm on stage. I just think in every other artistic endeavor, that's what people are striving to do. It sounds a little more critical than I mean for it to, but it's always just refreshing to me to to, well, Dados is another one where to keep it in the
Sure.
euphonium world. I always feel like I am getting a sense of who Fernando Dados is when I get to see him play, and I just feel like that's more interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've really tried to embrace is that if someone is willing to hire me for a gig, like a guest recital or whatever, that I'm the only person they can hire to get exactly what I'm going to do.
Right.
And whether, and if they're into that, then cool, then they hire me. And if I'm not their thing, then maybe they don't want to go that route. But, it's like, I don't know, I've heard in classes, master classes, probably with you guys, it's like, Empire Brass was already Empire Brass, so don't be them.
Right.
They've already done it. And I mean, like Lance, even you and I would say we have like a lot of overlap in what we might do on a show. But if someone, not that anyone's ever actively thought this without me asking them first, but if someone thinks, I want someone who plays euphonium and tuba and is going to play 90% of their own music and is going to sing some original ukulele comedy songs.
It's a pretty short
Matt
list.
Murchison's the only person I can go to for that. And if they want someone that is going to do a lot of those things but like do trombone instead of tuba, then, they go to you.
No one who's heard my trombone playing comes to me.
No,
You almost sounded sincere, Matt. That was impressive.
No,
it was
no.
like it was really
No, it
close.
is sincere.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
In episode 19 of The Entrepreneurial Musician, which was a long time ago at this point, I interviewed Ron Davis, who is who's this brilliant Canadian jazz pianist who also used to be a tenured college French professor. He also used to be a lawyer, and he quit all of it to just become a jazz pianist. And anyway, he talks about this is one of my favorite episodes of TEM because he talked about the dangers of being fungible. And I was like, all right, I'll bite. What does that mean? And since then I've used it 500 times on the podcast. But fungible basically means interchangeable. And so if all that you do is offer the exact same thing that everyone else does, then at that point it's a race to the bottom, and the only differentiator is price point. And so it's like, if Lance is going to charge you $1,000 a day, and then you come in at $800, and then Lance says, well, I'll do it for $750, and then you're like, I'll do $600, and then somebody gets hired for $300 for an entire day and a full recital, and then you're both mad because the music business sucks and life is unfair,
right?
And and you can't make a workable wage and all of that, and it's because you're both offering the exact same things that everybody else does. And it doesn't even have to be like, you don't have to, instead of doing the Brian Bowman thing, you don't have to do like some crazy off the wall electronics with like spoken word in Portuguese. I mean, which that's right. That sounds interesting to me, but like you were talking about, even Boston Brass before Lance and my time, when JD came on board, they had a conscious decision that did they blow up and reinvent the brass quintet model? Absolutely not. The first half was classical, second half was jazz and more popular stuff, which had been done for a long time by a lot of people, but in some minor ways. Like JD told me that he recognized that most brass quintets played a significant portion of their second half was either ragtime or Dixie music. And he loves Dixieland music, but that band has not done a lick of either of those styles in 20 years now because everybody else did it. And so it was like there was like bebop and there was swing and there was blues, and it was stuff that quintets weren't playing. So it's even just minor ways. And I think that you've done a really good way of carving, done a good job of carving your own niche within the industry, which, oh, by the way, the direction you're in can change at any moment, right? I mean, yeah, sure. It just seems so much more interesting to me to do it that way.
Totally.
Yeah, and I mean, it's exactly that. You don't have to reinvent the entire medium every time you go on stage. Just, like what Lance was talking about, I want to hear who that person is and like what their point of view is. But yeah, if anyone's like, hey, come hear this, I'm reinventing the concert. No, you're not, and I'll pass. I mean,
we play every possible kind of music. We play Baroque and classical.
Right.
And then we're going to
exactly.
put a piazzolla tune and a ragtime tune in there and tell you that we're hip.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm also sort of
Angry old man
aware.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I don't need no more Libertango.
That's right. Well,
Wait,
it's
totally,
like-
Matt. To totally cut you off, I remember when we played at Leexa Brass Week, and Ben Pierce was there, who's just one of my idols. He's
Sure.
ridiculous, and we performed, and we at that time we were playing a lot of Piazzolla, and I like this, and Ben, we're friends with Ben, so we want him to be straight with us, but like you said, not everyone's gonna like your pie all the time. And and it was kind of like I don't remember whether it was Lance or I who were like, so what'd you think of the show? And he said to be honest, and then we were like yeah, and he said I hate Piazzolla, so I really didn't dig it very much. And then he said, but you guys played your asses off, I mean, and I really, but even that, it's like you can't, but, and he didn't intend offense, and I didn't take offense.
No.
It's like, okay, I'm going to make it about me when Ben Pierce says that he doesn't like this other composer who's already dead. I mean, it's like, no, he just doesn't like the composer. So, anyway, I just thought that was funny. He's like, yeah, I wasn't into it.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
no, and that's great. That's like a great lesson that I think is hard for people to learn as well. I mean, myself included. You have to relearn it over and over, is that if someone doesn't necessarily like your show, it doesn't mean they think you're a scumbag human being.
right.
It doesn't have to be
you were acquitted.
a personal thing necessarily. Right, yeah. Yeah.
So
But
what are interesting threads that you would hope that people would pick up on, repertoire wise or idea wise? Like, where do you see it fertile ground?
oh gosh,
Behind my horse.
I don't.
See how quickly we can go from.
How far?
Yeah.
How far is
nonsense.
Pittsburgh from you on horseback?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I guess. Man, to be honest, I don't know. I feel like I won't know until someone said, "Oh, hey, I tried this thing," and I was like, "Cool. I hadn't thought of that. Let's see what that sounds like." But because really, I think the answer is, I don't know, anywhere people want to go with it. Again, like as Euphonium and even Tuba, like play what you want to play. I mean, realize that's maybe not always going to turn into money in your bank account or anything, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, who's doing interesting stuff right now, in your opinion?
Lance LaDuke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Definitely. I mean, in terms of
You choose
people that I admire, DeMondre Thurman sounds great. Again, like the stuff that he does is not stuff that I'm interested in doing, but man, he does it great. And I love listening to him play. Ben Pierce is amazing, of course. Again, he does more traditional recital stuff, at least the last I checked. But amazing stuff. Fernando Dados doing his own thing. Super cool stuff. I mean, anybody that is sort of doing their kind of authentic thing and doing it really well is interesting.
Let me ask you this. I'm trying to decide if this is going to be a controversial question or not. Well, here it comes.
Okay.
Do you think that the
This isn't
competition
gun control, is it?
the competition circuit helps or hurts in terms of what we've just been talking about?
I think. Well,
I don't really
over
know
the-
the answer myself. Like, so I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I struggle
No.
with it too, because on the one hand, well, I'll go first, and I'll take the first barrage of bullets.
Okay.
For my own ill thought out question. I think the plus is that it gives an opportunity for students to really strive to do very advanced things. And I think it goes some distance towards spreading the word about the instrument. I'm not sure about that. I think it's it's preaching to the choir a bit. But I think that the downside is that are we rewarding the question I'm asking myself is, are we rewarding the wrong things? Are we rewarding the Tutica and the faster, higher, louder, this kind of musical Olympics thing?
Right.
I don't know how you solve it, and I'm not suggesting that we do away with contests. I just it's an interesting, cuts both ways, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've noticed, I guess, over the past, I'm not sure, maybe 10 years or so, or maybe less, that there are some competitions, like when it comes to conferences, that will have a sort of entertainment portion added to the judging, like if it's a quartet thing and it's more emphasized on being a show. I think like when, I want to say when Gail Robertson was in charge of a quartet competition at one of the international conferences. I kind of
remember this, yeah.
There was something about that, and I know there was some grumbling from some, but there was also the legit mock orchestral audition and straight ahead solo rep competition.
Right.
So why not have both?
We're back to the pies, right?
Yeah, right. And so here's why I think competitions are great, because for me, like, I went to sort of a lot of competitions when I was in high school and college, and maybe it's because it was euphonium and tuba centered stuff. That's where I met and made a lot of friends.
There you go. The networking. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and just from the networking standpoint of it, there wasn't a lot of clashing. People were competing against each other, but that's where I made a lot of the contacts that I still have. I mean, I met when I went to Falcone, and friends that were in competitions with me, whether, one of us won or lost, that it was, those are the people I'm still in touch with, and those are the people that I can call and ask if they'll have me to their school. So anytime students are like, well, I don't really like competition, because I've encountered that. It's like, well, I don't really like competing. It's like, okay, I get that. It can be stressful and whatever, but this is a chance to go and make contacts in your industry. So go do that, because that's important. And so I think that's the best thing about it. And it's hard to feel like this when you're in it, when you're in the competition, but I think, like with any audition, it's either your job or it's not, and all you can do is bring what you have to say to the table, and depending on so many factors, where you are in the day, who's on the committee, all that stuff, just try not to put too much stock in the competition itself, but in who it connects you to.
That's well put.
Yeah.
So that's the thing for me about competitions.
There you go.
Wow.
That was articulate. I'm a little disarmed.
I know. It was like stunned.
I know, right? Yeah. Everybody gets one. Yeah. Yeah. And no, it's it made me think of like talking about how people are generally accepting of euphonium, but there was a year where, like, I did Concert Artists Guild competition, and felt like I played really well in the semifinals, and I was able to talk to the judges. There were 3 judges, and 2 of them had voted to pass me on, and the third one hadn't. And I was talking to that person, and they only had nice things to say about my playing, but when it came to why they voted no, they were like, well, I just couldn't imagine what work you would get.
Isn't that crazy?
As a euphonium player. So there's that. That's frustrating to sort of come back from, because it's like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. except for the instrument that I happen to be playing.
Boy, I can't tell you how many times I didn't finish it, but it will certainly be up by the time I'm done with this. But I wrote the first part of a blog post on this very subject last night, which is, I can't tell. It was about you getting rejected actually at that showcase. No, but that would be a funnier blog post.
That was
So my friend Matt, he lost once an audition, and here's the funny story. No, it's how many times in 14 years of Boston Brass did I hear a presenter say, either at a showcase or at another presenter's concert series, and they're talking afterwards, and they're saying you guys are incredible. I have to have you on my concert series, but I had brass last year, so so we're gonna have to wait another couple of years. And so the thing is this woman or this man has decided that they are going to have one brass quintet every 4 years, and that's it. And you could count that they have even if it's a 4 a year, they've probably had 8 string quartets in those 4 years. So it's we've had string quartet this month, so we need to wait until next month, but we've had brass this year, so we need to wait for another 3 years. And it's you're never going to convince that person, or even have the chance to convince that person that they should think about the world in this different way. So
right, sure.
You just got to go and do your own thing, and not read into it either, because like you said, that's pretty cool that you had that access to that judge who thought really great things about you. And it was it's when we usually sarcastically say it's not you, it's me. It's that's literally what they were saying. It's it's not you, it's us. So interesting.
Yeah, and it was great, and I felt really lucky, like you said, to have access to a judge that would tell me stuff like that. Once I never understood, because since being an adult in quotes,
chronologically,
judging some competitions or something, and when there's an option for students to request comments, I never understood the ones that wouldn't request comments.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane.
It's just, I don't get it. How can you not be curious enough to hear whoever it is? Let's say you're Matt Murchison's judging. I have no idea who that is, and I don't care what they think. Okay, but you never know.
Of course.
I've learned really, interesting stuff talking to, believe it or not, talking to an oboe player, or talking to, or going to a percussion master class or something.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah.
I gently chastise especially at the college level. Anytime that I ever give a master class, and anyone, which is usually there's only 2 or 3 people who have either a pad of paper or their laptop open ready to take notes, I tell the whole room that they're being idiots. And I say, even if the only thing that you write down is note to self, never in caps attend another Andrew Hitz masterclass, then that and that's fine. This is not I'm so wise, I can't believe that you're not going to take full advantage of it. It's just you never know who is going to say something that is going to change your life.
Right.
You always should, and you should seek out comments, even if it's not an option. And frequently there's no possibility. I mean, when you're just candidate number 37 behind a screen, but and never assume that you can't get comments. Be the squeaky wheel very politely. And if you can't, then great. But the most successful people in the world want feedback. Yeah.
Well, and again, that demonstration of curiosity, I think, will get you really far.
Yes.
With people. So even if you play an audition or play a competition and you don't advance, but you're there going to the judges saying, "Hey, do you have a minute to talk about what I did?" I feel overall, those judges are going to remember you in a very flattering light, depending on, no matter if you advanced or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're going to think of you as a person that they might want to work with, I think.
Yes.
I had the I had the opposite experience one time. I judged a competition, and one of the competitors came up and proceeded to I finally just walked away because for about 15 minutes they were trying to explain to me why I was wrong in not having them win. And all of they sat and listened to all the other competitors, and here's why the folks who won shouldn't have won, and here's why they should have won instead. I was like, first I thought it was a joke. I was like in shock.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And then I think, Matthew, I think you know who this is, I think. I'll tell you afterwards.
It's possible. Okay.
Jamie Lipton won the event, and rightfully so. She was fantastic. And then one of the people who did not took umbrage with that and explained to me why I was so wrong. I was like, really? Like, okay, that's your angle? Yeah. I still remember your name.
I know, right.
How many ever years later that is?
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've actually been compiling comments about Lance for the last 13 years of working with him. I'm just waiting for him to ask me for them.
That's great.
Keep waiting.
They're detailed. Yeah, it's on a terabyte external hard drive. So
That's
yeah,
right.
it's a lot of documentation. Well, we are. We're about out of time, so we need you to bust on Jens. So, what about what? I mean, what supportive? You have a high emotional intelligence, Matthew. I don't know if that came with the doctorate or no, because I knew you before you were Dr. Murchison. You've always you've always reeked of emotional intelligence, and so I'm wondering.
Thank you.
You're half right.
I'm wondering if if you could maybe offer Jens some advice in this very trying time for him.
Well, I mean, gosh, it's tough. When I played with River City, Jens came and soloed with us, and it was rough to see such a once great man
If that.
Reduced to what he had become. But the some people think it's a mental thing, but really what I found to work really well is just to sit for a few minutes every night with a piece of raw tuna on my face. And that's worked wonders for me, and I would suggest he may want to try that as well.
Sushi grade or non-sushi grade?
Well, I'm a Euphonium player, so I just get the Starkist can, and that's the limit of what I can afford.
How do you have
and
cats?
just put
How
it
do
on
you
my
keep
face.
the cats off your face?
I know. I was going to say it is it's difficult. It's sort of a toss-up, I guess, because there's the tuna heals the chops, but then the scratch marks on my face are rough. Yeah.
There you go, man. There you go. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Jens will be able to find some better raw tuna in L.A. than you will be able to in West Virginia. Since I don't know if you know this, but you don't really live next to an ocean. So
no, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep, you got that. Well, that was as disturbing as I hoped it was going to be. There you go.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah, that was. I had high hopes for that, and they were met. So that's good.
Very, very good.
So
I felt nervous.
Before we head over to the bonus episode, which will somehow I think get weirder, which is for our Patreon patrons only, which we do with every guest. Lance, is there anything that I'm forgetting from the dear doctor?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Matthew. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/PrayForJens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.